Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to House Talk. I am your co-host for tonight, Alan Garlick. Many scholar athletes experience inner turmoil because of the ever-looming question, to play or not to play. For many student athletes, the transition from high school to college can be quite the learning process. Athletes have to learn how to balance their time between academic work, training, playing the sport, and having a personal life. Determining whether being a scholar athlete is hard depends on who you ask and what sport they play. I think each of our guests tonight will agree that there are rewards and challenges that come with being a student athlete. Tonight on House Talk, it's all about sports, academics, culture, and masculinity. So now I just want to pause and give you a little bit of background about myself. I am a former scholar athlete. I played high school sports. I played football. I also played basketball. I played a season of tennis and a season of track and a season of baseball. In the spring, I mixed it up. In college, I played football. I actually walked on to the College of William & Mary and earned a scholarship after my first year. I came in as a linebacker, and I played defensive end. And like I said earlier, I struggled with the academic piece when I got to college, but I was able to make it through and eventually went on to get my graduate degree. So we'll talk about my experience a little bit later. But like I said, the struggle is real. Many, if not all, student athletes will tell you that their job is hard, and on House Talk, it's all about the hard conversations. And more importantly, it's all about the solution-focused answers that we must find to strengthen our relationships, homes, and communities. The demands placed on student athletes, their families, and relationships is seemingly endless and full of highs, lows, triumphs, and perceived failures that warrant much more discussion, clarity, and preparation.
You know, I want to touch for a minute on the parents because that parental piece is so important when it comes to everything that you all have to deal with as scholar athletes. Parents can have a powerful influence on the development of an athlete. There are both positive and negative effects that parents can have on their child's athletic career. Sports have the potential to be a tremendous experience for both the children and the parents. The bonding that occurs in sports can last a lifetime. I'm sure our guests and many of our listeners can think back to a time when your own parents were involved in your sporting activities. God knows, Alan's parents and I beat up that highway supporting him when he was in college playing ball. And I would hope that most of these memories are positive ones of spending time together, learning life lessons, and especially of having fun. We had a lot of that. Unfortunately, many parents unintentionally make the sport experience less than fulfilling for their children. These parents may have an inappropriate perspective of what sports are all about. Often, however, it is the well-meaning parent that just says the wrong thing at the wrong time that leads to the child feeling criticized and under excessive parental pressure.
Yeah, you know, in contrast, sports provide the individuals that play significant experiences. The benefits are tremendous, and they include the development of healthy exercise habits, leadership skills, a sense of teamwork and belonging to a larger community, and improved self-esteem. But there's certainly some negatives, which include burnout, stress, missed social and educational activities, and a disruption of family life. There's a uniqueness in competitive sports. Where else is losing and failure built in? It's guaranteed for at least half of the participants that you're going to lose. So even the outstanding performance often leads to loss, disappointment, and perceived failure. If that's not overwhelming enough, it's also worth mentioning that race and sexuality influence male performances of masculinity within sports. Internationally renowned British sociologist Ben Carrington argues that male dominance in early organized sports relied on presumptions of white superiority and black male emasculation. Consequently, black men have traditionally used sports to assert masculinity, resist racism, and advocate for civil rights. Tonight, we literally have a team of former scholar athletes who will provide clarity and answers to some of your questions as we tackle the next to the last episode of our summer 2019 MAN-NESS series. Tonight, we're discussing scholar athletes, sports as a lens of culture and masculinity. Joining Dr. Pitts and me tonight are special guests, former scholar athletes, former Washington Redskin, and also the College of William & Mary, Robert Green. We also have Jared Johnston. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you for having me.
Rob, good deal. Did you want to take a little time and talk a little bit about your experience in, your as a scholar athlete? Quickly.
Sure. Thank you. This is Robert Green speaking. Again, thanks for having me on here, Lauren and Alan. I was in college. In high school as well. I played football 4 years. Football was vital to my life at that time, but at the same time, I was definitely very into my academics, and because of that, I was able to earn a full scholarship to the College of William & Mary because I earned a 3.77 cumulative average over 4 years, and again, that was vital to get into William & Mary. If anybody knows about the College of William & Mary, it's very academically challenging and hard to get in, so that was one of my prouder moments in life. Getting in was the easy part, though. Staying in was the hard. I also, yes, no doubt about it. It was very difficult getting used to the demands and used to being very successful in the classroom. That was when I had to really buckle down and decide that this was not a time to fail or to waver. So, I had to just get down into my books, really start to prioritize, and so I could, be proud of myself as an athlete, or as a scholar athlete.
Definitely. Well, welcome, Rob. Tonight we also have Jared Johnston, who's a graduate of Bowie State University. Welcome, Jared.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being able to discuss this topic with you guys tonight. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, nice having you. And did you want to share a little bit about your experiences as a scholar athlete quickly?
Yeah, definitely. I'll share a brief rundown. As you said, my name is Jared Johnson. I attended State University, which is a Division II HBCU. But before I got to Bowie State, I actually attended junior college, which some people have the experience of junior college before going to the university. Others go straight into the university. So I got to see both sides. Definitely one thing I'll say about junior college is that it was definitely a learning experience. It opened my eyes because you really got to see the grit of what's needed on a junior college level and in some facets the desperation that you see in athletes to get to a university, because a lot of times, like the Netflix series, it's pretty much our last chance in a way. So seeing that and then to a university and a HBCU, my experience was definitely one to remember. I wouldn't, change anything versus going to a HBCU or a PWI. But I will say that going to the college level, there are more demands. You definitely have to be disciplined and have a great support system around you. Definitely, stay focused on that level, because it's a lot of pitfalls, but there's also great things that you can, get from being at a university if you, use your leverage as an athlete the right way.
Definitely. A lot of good points there, Jared. Thank you. Welcome. All right. So we also have tonight Ronike Hayne. Did I pronounce that correctly, Ronike?
Hayne, Alan.
Hayne. All right, Ronike Hayne. Hayne. All right. Who's a graduate of Delaware State University. Welcome, Ronike.
Hello, everyone. once again, I want to thank Alan, thank Lauren for having me on. This is a wonderful experience just to be able to, on a panel like this, too. I see a lot of people, we all walk the same path when we play the sport. You know, someone once told me a long time ago, a true warrior notices another warrior on the battlefield. Like, you can see that person. You can feel that. You know, when I started out, you know, I barely graduated high school and I barely graduated college. By God's grace is like, you know, I actually, you know, got into Delaware State University, had a very good mentor. She was handicapped, so I had to do a lot of legwork. That's before the internet, so I was, to searching where I could go, I went to the car, used the car catalog, writing letters to admissions, talking to people, going up there by myself. My mother graduated from a community college. She had an associate's degree, so I was the person kind of breaking the chain. But at that time period, I didn't even value that. I did poorly in college because I did poorly in high school. I didn't really value the opportunity being a student athlete. You know, it wasn't really etched into my head until I always heard the term when I was in college. So when I first got to college, I had to sit a year out, and I ended up getting on the team like in that spring and trying out, and I ended up playing. And I always worked hard. I had a great mentor by the name of Mark Newton. He runs a program here in Wilmington, Delaware, and we always did like things outside of what we traditionally did, you know, with the team. And at that time period, he was a community guy like myself, and it wasn't too many people supporting that role, going to college and using football as that vessel to get there. So I always wanted to play college football. You know, I always wanted to play college football, but I didn't really understand what it was to be a student athlete. And once I got there, it was an academic probation. I got off, and then I ended up getting back on academic probation and after sitting out a year, and then I got back on another semester, and I fell off the team because I didn't know the importance of being a student athlete. But I stayed because I stayed, and I had to learn real quick because I was so far behind. So I'm one of those guys.
You make a good point.
And it shows in how I coach and what I value now in regards to student athlete, etching that and telling these guys what it takes. And you got to kind of be careful what you ask for, because I asked to be a college football player, but I didn't totally know what came with it.
Yeah, definitely. And you made a good point about that adjustment period, going from a high school student athlete to a college student athlete, and what what it takes to be successful on the next level. And as you see, like, some people get it in different stages. So, well, welcome, definitely, Ronnie, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about your story. And tonight, last but not least, we have Ronnie Ransome, who is a graduate of Virginia State University. Welcome, Ronnie.
Hello. How's everybody doing? I'm glad to be a part of this. Definitely looking forward to the conversation that we have tonight.
Okay, good deal. All right, Ronnie, we will definitely learn more about you as the night goes on. We'll ask some questions and get your experience and your perspective. So welcome to House Talk, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So, listeners, we are encouraging you to call in with your comments and questions. The phone number is 515-605-9744. That's 515-605-9744. We want to hear from you. Let's jump right in. Whether you play sports at a large or small high school, or Division I to Division III college, being a student athlete is a unique experience. There are positive, rewarding aspects as well as challenges, and each team and athlete has their own story. So, for clarity's sake, what does scholar athlete mean? Does it have a meaning depending on the sport or educational level, meaning high school or college?
Well,
can I take
this is Robert. Well, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead,
take it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Robert. Okay, so when you are a student athlete, scholar athlete, you are a special person because you have to live in both worlds. You have to be a student, a traditional student, goes to school, abides by the rules, makes an attempt to get good grades and understand the expectations of being a good student. Now, being an athlete, some people, you can be an athlete at a rec center. You can be an athlete at the Powell. You can be an athlete at the Boys and Girls Club. Those are all athletes in those buildings, but they don't have the obligation of being a student at that point in time in there. So when you're playing for a high school, I mean, sometimes certain programs, even on the middle school level, that they have middle school ball or as a little league as well too, in certain places where the program's big, you have to be able to live up to expectations on the field and off the field, on the court, off the court, in the classroom and whatever desired sport that you play. So you live by a different code, and you are a representation of yourself first and foremost, the school, and your parents. I put the school before your parents first because, I mean, it depending on where you're at, there's a different expectation if you're playing from Concord de La Salle versus you're playing, at Pinkhead or Charter in Wilmington, Delaware. There's a bigger representation that comes behind it. Or it's the same thing if you're going like an IMG, or even if you're a small town, you play for the high school. You represent the high school first. They got to kind of understand that,
Exactly.
And, that's my definition of that. I don't know. Hopefully I answered that correctly.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point about being a representative, and Rob and I can attest to that. And we represented not only ourselves but our college and the United States internationally in a game in Japan. So, and that type of that. Yes, that is something, one of those special experiences that you get to experience as, a scholar athlete.
If I could add to that, Alan, when you talk about representation, being a scholar athlete also requires you to do more than the average person. Everybody else can go and get, let's say, a 2.0 on a 4.0 scale, or maybe a little less and graduate. Well, many of the areas and counties have standards, minimum standards, that say you have to have this GPA and maybe no E's, no failed classes to even be able to participate. So I think it's important that people understand that we're not just going out there and playing. We're scholars first. That's why they call it scholar athlete. You have to go out there and take care of your business in the classroom, or you won't even be seen on the field, okay? And the biggest part about that is, as a scholar athlete, especially coming from high school, you're actually representing your high school and everybody from your area, because if you go to school and let's say you really act up and mess up, guess what those scouts are not going to do? They're not going to go back to that school because you represent everybody there, and they're saying, no, I don't want another one of those. So you mess up the opportunity. So it's a big responsibility for those of us that get that opportunity. So as they say, to whom much is given, much is expected. So I think that's a very big thing that people need to understand, the listeners need to understand. We're not just playing for ourselves.
Gotcha. Okay.
And to add to that, this is Jared, by the way, also. Just on the surface, I believe the general definition of a scholar athlete, whether you play a sport or you're a regular student on college campus, you would describe it as somebody who takes care of business off the field first, and you take care of your business on the field second. And I also believe that a scholar athlete is somebody that is at the top of their class academically, and also they play a very huge role on the respective sports team. And the reason I say plays a huge role is because I believe there's different levels to being a scholar athlete. And an example of that is, at Bowie, I played quarterback. So I was a starting quarterback. And not to throw shade at somebody who may have been, a third-string quarterback, or somebody's a third-string running back at the time, or even if you're redshirting for a season, you have the balance level that you have is totally different from a starter to somebody who is redshirted and knows, okay, I'm not playing this Saturday. If we take it to the academic side, you can have the decision to make of, I have a test coming up Friday. There's also a big home game on Saturday I need to prepare for. When it's Thursday night, I'm a starter. I play a huge role. on campus I'm more known, so there's a little more pressure on me to perform well as the demands that the coaches have on me. So you may decide to, rather than study for that test, you may put more emphasis on the game. So I feel like that balance that you have to have is way more demanding than if you were a red shirt. So I believe there's different levels to a scholar athlete, but the
that
overall,
is an excellent point
general
as well.
picture, right. It just changes, and if you want to get into the mental capacity of it as well, there's you just have to be a strong individual, because another thing is you have to be able to balance that pressure to walk into class the next week. You may have played a bad game on Saturday,
win, lose, or draw.
Class, You know what I'm saying, and still take care of your academic business. So I think that
indeed.
Something.
And let's be honest. It is definitely easier to be a scholar athlete when you ride in the bench, when you don't have the pressure of being a major contributor.
The Jersey players. Oh yeah, the Jersey, they got it made. They get all the same praise, and that's a big difference. It's a whole big difference for them.
Yeah, definitely. But you know what? It all gets proven out on the field of play.
Right.
Yes, that is one of the great things about the athlete part of it. Yeah. So, does anybody else have anything to add? If not, we'll kick it back to Dr. Lauren.
Nope.
Very good. So I just wanted to point out something. You all made some excellent points, and it made me think about when Alan and I were in high school. Salem High School, where we attended, actually has been known to crank out some serious athletes. The challenge, though, is what you all were talking about in the ability to successfully strike that balance between the academic and the athletic. And Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we look at, particularly during our era, there were a lot of athletes that went to college, whether it be on full athletic scholarships or partial athletic scholarships, but there were only a handful of you that actually made it and had successful scholar athlete careers in college. That's football, basketball, baseball. Like, folks just didn't make it. And I can't say definitively why, but I believe, knowing some of those individuals that came home after first semester, that it was the academic piece and probably the social, cultural piece too, that they just weren't properly prepared for.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the two. I think, number one, we already talked about that adjustment from going from a high school scholar athlete to a college scholar athlete. So you have to learn how to study. You have to learn how to approach your classes and your labs and getting things done. So you have that to deal with. And then in addition, you are going from being the big fish in a little pond to just one of the fishes, in a great big pond. So you have to adjust a little bit that way. And, some people who are used to being at the very top of their game are now struggling to be recognized because everybody's good. So you have that weighing against them too. So if you can't adjust to the new level of intensity academically, and then you also have this social thing at work that's sort of working against you at the same time, it can be a recipe for disaster. And unfortunately, in our case and during that time, there wasn't a lot of examples to use, or people to come back to kind of let people know what to expect. So that part made it doubly difficult. And you basically had to learn on the fly. I had to learn on the fly. Like Rob, I didn't have a 3.7 when I came out of high school, so I had to learn. Exactly.
But he could have. Let me just go ahead and put him on blast. He could have. He just did.
I didn't know how to be a student. I didn't know how to be an effective student, and I didn't learn that until I was forced to by being put on academic probation while I was in college. So that was kind of my experience there.
Well, that's not it. This is Robert. This is Robert speaking again. I want to be honest here. Like I told you, it was tough. Even though I came in with those stats, those stats were probably the reason, along with a very good support system, that I was able to make it out because, again, I can't remember who made the comment, but being a starter makes a big difference. And I was very fortunate enough to start my freshman year, which rarely happens. And so it was very difficult trying to balance, playing a lot, having those pressures of performing because I didn't want to get pulled. I didn't want to sit on the bench, but at the same time, taking care of my academic responsibilities. And at William & Mary, they didn't care. This was not a big school where, if you were a big football player, somebody would do your work for you. No, that wasn't the type of college we went to. So, it was definitely an adjustment period of about 2 years. It took me about 2 years to figure out, especially in season, learning how to do what I needed to do. So, it was definitely a challenge.
I just wanted to say this, and I'm hoping that before we end tonight that you all will be able to circle back to that piece, Alan, that you mentioned about the little fish in the big pond, because I think so oftentimes these kids have this misconception that, they're good, right? We're diehard sports folks. And we see some stellar athletes, but just because you're a stellar athlete at the high school level doesn't mean that you're D1 material. And it ends up, they personalize it, they internalize it, and then, I'm not the standard third. It doesn't mean that you're not good. So I'm hoping that at some point you all will circle back to that difference between D1 versus D2, because they could go to D2 or they could go to D3 and actually shine, but because they've got starry eyes about D1, they go to D1 and they ride the bench for 4 years or 5 years if they're redshirted.
Yeah.
So,
it takes being realistic.
Yeah. Hopefully you all will touch back on that. So it's easy for high school athletes to picture themselves at their dream school, competing at a prestigious university and playing against the best of the best. But it's harder to grasp some of the gritty details, as you all have already touched on, such as rigorous training programs, winter breaks spent on campus, and little to no free time. I know all about that. The question is, do you want to commit to playing college sports? As each of our guests will share, your experience as a college athlete will differ significantly compared to your high school or club team. Practice and training are much more intense. You're no longer the best one on the team. Most of your time is spent with your teammates, including the off-season and holidays, and I can attest to that because, and your academic performance is closely watched. So, gentlemen, share with our listeners, how do colleges recruit athletes, and what advice can you give the high school student athlete who feels under-recruited?
This is Ronnie. I think I'll go first on that.
Okay.
So I've coached high school football. I've coached on the junior college level, and I actually coached on the club level. I had a club team that competed and functioned as a non-traditional postgraduate program. And, we played against other colleges, area schools like Wesley's JV, Rowan's JV, Valley Forge Military Academy, Fort Union. And from being a college coach, in this day and age, because the internet is so popular, it goes two ways: word of mouth from local recruiters, local high school coaches. You're going to evaluate film, but you can do that as long as you got a huddle link, or BVS. At one point in time, a lot of people were just going on YouTube. Exact same thing with tweeting. Twitter's a real big scene in regards to college recruiting. So it's so many avenues, and they can get so many opportunities for exposure, as well as college athletic camps, football combines, and things of that nature. At one point in time, I say about 10 years ago, there were only two. It was Schumann's, and there was another one. And pretty much at one point in time, all the college coaches could come to Schumann's, to those college combines, because, they were big at the time, and they had one on the East Coast and the West Coast, and everyone would just try to get to those areas and see those kids in a live situation. And
so
then
Penn State has a real big combine.
Yeah, they always did, But even nowadays, you look at situations like Michigan, they shocked the world when they started having like satellite combines. They would go and recruit all the way across, the country. So it's going to, depending on what level you're on, it comes down to even resources. We mentioned JUCO earlier. In my situation, sometimes the kid is, like on the bubble, a partial qualifier, or we need to hire that kid. They'll send him locally. I was contacted by Rutgers at one point in time, mainly because I wasn't a big program, but they know the kid could come down here and hide him. He could get, the academic services, and he can also play his games, he can develop, and he can slide in there, so they don't have to go through like a whole recruitment battle, So, like, to answer that question, social media, Twitter is real big. Huddle links, Instagram. Instagram is also big for everything. And the old, the big schools don't have to. They have, their goal, war and bidding wars and recruiting wars with the other bigger schools. But they have, if it's a big school like Alabama, they got Alabama locked for the most part. And then they have pipelines in different high schools. They know a lot of these coaches are same old drinking buddies. They're only going to send their kids to such school or whatever coach like leaves and recruit. To even get a good college job, one of the requirements, man, is do you have an eye for talent? Do you have a connect? Do you got a plug? Do you know this coach?
Yeah,
you know that
pipeline.
Coach? Exactly. And that's what's real big. So yeah, they can. At the end of the day, it's the end of the day. In this day and age, they can find you on the internet, somebody else's camp, online, especially if you're good. You're good, they can find you. They're going to find you. They were doing it years ago, and they still do that.
Okay. So how about that high school student athlete who feels under recruited? Your advice to them. What would you suggest for that student athlete?
I'll take a crack at this one. This is Ronnie. From my own personal experience of being in high school, there were moments, especially going into my senior year, where I felt maybe I was under-recruited during the process. And even though I was in high school at the very early ages of social media, we didn't have the luxury like these kids nowadays of having, multiple, social media sites where you can have your game film, you can post your game film every single week. When I was still in high school, you had to get the coach to burn the copy and the CD and pass that around for people to see it. Or unless, if you had to hire a videographer to make you a highlight tape or a YouTube link and stuff like that. So, but nowadays kids don't necessarily, there's really not too many excuses kids can have about not being seen. But something that if there's one piece of advice that anybody who's listening will take from me is don't waste a lot of your money or your parents' money going to football camps. And that was something that, I had to learn the hard way, and I had to be very objective with myself. My dream school, going into high school was University of Maryland. And, fortunately, my parents, supported that dream and, paid for me to go to their camp. And if not too many people are familiar with University of Maryland's football camp, it's full gear. You got helmet, shoulder pads, the whole 9 yards, and you're hitting at the camp. So when you do one-on-ones, you really get to make a name for yourself. So, and, I took advantage of that. I did, that camp was not cheap at all. And, I told myself I'm going to get as many one-on-one reps as I can. And I took advantage of it. And the biggest thing that I had to learn was that even though I was doing good at the camps, my film always didn't necessarily reflect what I did at camps. And so my advice would be let your film do the talking for you. If you're good on a football field, it doesn't matter what camp you go to, your film is going to do the talking at the end of the day. Most times when you go to these big camps like Maryland, Michigan, in Virginia, you got UVA, Virginia Tech. When you go to those big camps, most of those schools already have a list of sophomores and juniors who they're recruiting or who they have an idea of. So if your name isn't on that list, you're just basically funding their program.
Wow.
And I've had a lot of parents ask me, and that's just not, I really feel like, if you're not on their list of people looking at you, then you're just funding their program and giving them extra money. I've had a lot of parents ask me, should I send my kid to camps? Should I send them here? Should I send them to the big school to get a look? And I'm like, you can if you want to, but honestly, if your film don't back it up or support what you're doing at that camp, you're just going to be a workout warrior at that point.
Yeah.
That's so true. I'm sorry to interject like that. Just to piggyback off of what he said, in regards to camps, I'm kind of like 60-40 with camps. Sometimes it's 80-20. Depending on what your situation is, what position you play, if you play a skill, there's going to be 1,001 kids at that camp. If they didn't call for you to go to that camp, I'm not going to that camp. Like for Delaware athletes, that I'm around, that I mentor, and they ask me or people who I'm affiliated with, should I go to the Rutgers camp? There's always going to be 1,000 kids on Rutgers campus. Did they ask you to come? No. In regards to spending money-wise, I'm going to stick to the $50, the one-day camps. Temple has a one-day camp. It used to be $50. Delaware State and University of Delaware has one-day camps, and Lincoln has a one-day camp. And you can really showcase your talent with that. So when you get to the point where if there's no one calling for you, junior or senior, and they're not calling for you, I'm not going. It's no sense of paying. The day and age of paying at $395 or at $375, it's no sense of you to go because, like Ronnie said, they know who they're looking at. You're going to pay the GAs. You're going to get that new turf, or you're going to get those pay for that lunch when we have to go all the way to Kansas or something like that. You know what I'm saying? That's a business. And that's why I think kids got to understand that, where, you got to understand college is a business. So you got to develop yourself as a brand. In regards to recruiting, getting themselves recruited, Twitter is a great resource. But at the end of the day, like Ronnie also mentioned, what is your output? What are you actually giving to the game? This is one of those games where, if you're not giving nothing to the game, it's not going to give back to you. So are you, even if I'm 6'5", 265, ripped, looking like Shaka Zulu out there, if they see the film, they're coming back and asking for grades. You know what I'm saying? They're going to ask for grades. Yeah. So academically, are you up to par? Have you taken your SAT yet, if it's at that point? Are you taking the SAT or the ACT? What's your scores looking like? Once you look, and you got to be realistic too. You got to look the part. You got to pass the eye test, and that's where your off-season, your in-season training comes in.
Exactly.
On the field and off the field. Am I a marketable player? Why ask people? Kids ask me that all the time, though. Someone referenced Last Chance U. The receiver had a lot of schools for him, and he was like, "Man, I want to get my mama out of the situation," but you got 2 Fs.
Right.
You cannot tell somebody, "I want to take care of my family," and you're worrying about scholarship, and you got 2 Fs. It don't go hand in hand. 1 + 1 = 2.
Exactly. You bring up a good point, and it's a good way to transition into our next topic, because now we want to talk about that support system. We want to talk about the parents. And it's really important to address the parents of these student athletes, because without the support and encouragement, it's going to make the journey that much more difficult. Being a parent of a student athlete is no easy feat. Parents have to be the scheduling experts. They have to balance work, travel, weeknights, weekends. They have other children that have similar activities. They also have a mate or a spouse. They got dogs. They got cats. They got pets. They got a whole bunch of stuff going on. Not to mention the type of physical and emotional support that parents of student athletes give on a daily basis. These kids really need encouragement. So we have a 3-part question for you. What tips can you offer for parenting a student athlete? What additional tips can you offer single parents of student athletes? And then lastly, are there additional tips for parenting student athletes of color? So you guys can just jump in on whichever one you want to tackle.
Those are good questions.
Man, I guess I can take a swing at it real quick. Some advice I would definitely give some parents out here is, be realistic with your child at the end of the day. I've ran across a lot of parents, who their kid is, 5'8", 5'9", playing guard, and they're like, well, I want my kid wants to play guard at the next level. They want to play college at the next level, and while that might be possible at some smaller schools, like some D2 or D3 schools, your kid ain't going to Tech, your kid ain't going to UVA at 5'9" playing guard. And a lot of times parents, don't want to, they don't want to be the bearer of bad news to their child, but, you set your child up for failure. Not being realistic with them.
Everything is not for everybody.
No, it's not. And another thing that I think parents should do is, let their kids play multiple sports growing up. A lot of the biggest fad going around lately is, specialization sports where, kids, parents have their kids focus on one sport, whether it's basketball, football, baseball. Let your kid be a kid. And at the end of the day, everybody whose child is in sports, they want their child to do good. They want their child to make it far in sports. But let your kid, play multiple sports. Let them be in different locker rooms and be in different environments, be around different coaches so they get that experience in different situations. Because, what you go through in football, you might not go through in basketball. So getting that experience with playing a different sport, you become a more well-rounded athlete.
It sounds like you need sports education camps for parents, because so many of these parents get starry-eyed the moment somebody tells them that Lil Hakeem is all that soda to rebate the bag of chips. They got visions of sitting by the in-ground pool in the 6,000 square foot house sipping lemonade. And at the end of the day, it's like, so.
Yeah, but it's to the point
I think
now.
It's deeper than that. I think it's even deeper than that. Like, just piggyback, and I'm sorry, but I mean, what Lauren just said is, it doesn't even have to go that far as NFL celebrity. I just think even local celebrity, who does not want to have the son or the daughter who's a star point guard on the team, or even, like the starting running back, because you were 10 years ago, and your dad was, and your uncles were, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, expectations can be hard so much on the kid as well, too. You don't want to force, live vicariously through them. You don't want to put too much expectations on them. And you got to know what's going on. I mean, if you played in 2000, it's 2019. This ain't the same game. This ain't the same kids we got. These kids are not mentally as strong as we are. They're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger. They have more resources than we ever did, but they're not the same kids. Society is different. So for some parents, depending on who they are, I'm sorry.
No, that's good points, man. So do you have anything specific to single parents that you'd like to add? Like what about the single moms?
You first rule number one, like, you got to develop a team within the team. You can't put all the trust in the coach in this day and age, because a lot of coaches coach to win and not develop players. So I mean, you don't have to be. Yeah.
That's powerful.
I got deep, didn't I?
That is.
Thank you, brother. Yeah. We on here. House talk. So I mean, the thing is, like, you have to. The internet is a wealth of knowledge. You don't want to be overbearing, but you got to know what's going on. It's the same thing if you buying a car. You should know what gas the car takes. You can do all that through the internet, and you can, same thing going to a PTA meeting. Show your presence. Don't let them take advantage of you and your son. And then you don't want to be overbearing. Like, you do want to have some level of trust. But at the end of the day, like, if we can have the opportunity to get a free education, we need to do that. And we all need to invest our money wisely, too. Does he need, sports-specific training, or should he actually play basketball or swim, Or does he not need to be doing anything? He may need to lift weights and get a tutor. And and who's your son? If you know your son, you're going to know what's right for your son, and you can make it work. Because at the end of the day, and Doc knows this because I spoke to her, we got to stop changing the weight plates and change the mindset of the kid. Like, a lot of our kids have so many stressors and mental health issues. Like, I'm a coach. I'm coaching high school ball right now in West Oak Lane, Northern Philadelphia, Imhotep Charter. We play a national schedule. They were the only public league team, right, in the city to ever win a state championship back in 2015. They got multiple guys in SEC. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy down there. But it's a lot of kids from North Philly kids, period. These kids don't catch a school bus to go to practice. They're on a trolley. They're on a train. You know what I'm saying? So, like, and it's not it's not a good parent fan base, So it's so many stressors and so many things that you got to know your son. You know your son. You know the people around your son in regards to your coaching staff, and then you got to know what's going on in the building. Is my academic advisors doing what they're supposed to be doing? I mean, the guidance counselors, especially if he is getting that fame, if he's one of those type of caliber players. And at the end of the day, like, you know, you're going to know if Tom or Tina is good, even going into the ninth grade, because sports is so big now. You know if your son is good because people are talking to you, this and that. That's got to be the time you got to know what's going on. So if you can't do it, you know, you got to get your uncle,
that's
your
the time
brother,
to start building your team.
Somebody. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Building that support group like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There you go.
And just to hit on, I think it was Dr. Pitts who had mentioned parents expecting, you know, 15 years down the line when their kid is in the NFL, they're sitting at a pool, you know, around a mansion. I feel like as parents, the trajectory should change, and the way that we perceive our children and our young athletes should change, because a lot of parents do see them being in that position 15 years later after their son makes it to the NFL, but they can't see that happening in any other field outside of football. And I feel like there's more pressure they put on their child, because as a kid they may think, okay, I have to make it to the NFL or I can't take care of my single mother. So we have to be able to involve kids in different activities outside of just football, and doing 4 days a week they're going to a specialized trainer. Why not be disciplined enough and, you know, care about your child enough to involve maybe 1 day a week into learning about financial literacy, or or introducing them to, you know, strong career fields that they can go into, that they can get the same amount of enjoyment out as football. And I feel that we have to start that at a young age, because a lot of times you put that pressure on them, the time's ticking, they get to college, you know, they start to realize, okay, this isn't going to happen. And then once it ends, there's really nothing to fall back on that's of any substance to society. You know, a lot of times you learn, you know, through all those workouts and all the practices, you learn the hard work, you learn the teamwork, the togetherness. But, I mean, at the end of the day, that only goes a long way. You need to learn actual skills that you can provide for your family once that time comes. And I feel that's a major part of parenting that a lot of parents are missing, in my
Okay. Excellent advice.
Yeah. Does anybody else want to add anything?
No, I think you hit it. He hit it right there. I want to thank you guys for being on the panel, man. Like, I don't like to try to walk away with nothing and not learn something. So, I mean, Ronnie, Rob, you guys are doing a good job. I really appreciate this opportunity, Alan.
Oh, yeah. And it's great to see that, you know, we have people here still contributing. Still, we have coaches, you know, giving back, developing scholar athletes to this day. And that's really what it takes, to be able to show them and let them know what it takes, so that maybe when they hit college, they're a little bit more prepared for that transition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, the true value of involvement in sports is to develop life skills. At least that's been my observation as the significant other of a scholar athlete, as well as being the mother of a scholar athlete. And it's a commitment to be the best that he or she can be, setting and following through on goals, developing focus and concentration, managing one's emotions, dealing with the pressures of performance, developing good interpersonal skills, and learning to create balance in one's life. So, you know, parents can help their children develop these skills. And I just wanted to share a couple of quick highlights that make me giggle every time I think about it, because, you know, Alan shared in the beginning that he had some academic challenges and stuff. And I tell you, the conversations that we used to have, it's like mommy and daddy would be all over him, because it's like, boy, what are you doing? Anybody spending money for you to be down there not doing your schoolwork? And his parents, education is everything. Education is everything. And, you know, I've known this man literally my whole darn life. And for as long as I've known him, you know, his parents have always been loving and supporting and encouraging where the athletic component was, but equally demanding as far as his academic performance, and they never let up on that. They just absolutely positively never let up. And I remember so many times sitting in the stands and, you know, being his girlfriend for as many years as I was, like, I never recalled him ever having a temper tantrum in our relationship. But, man, let him miss a block or a tackle. I'm like, did he really just throw his body on the ground and pound the thing? What is going on right now? And Mom would be in the stands saying, I'm going to need you to talk to your son. Because it's like, what are you doing? But there was this
passion. That's the passion necessary to be successful in something like football. You have to really love it in order to be, because if not, then it's dangerous. You know, you can hurt yourself if you ain't out there doing it at, you know, at the right speed.
Yeah, and his mom and dad always required excellence of him. So my question to you, gentlemen, and I'm gonna say the order so that we stay on target in the instance of time. The question is, how can a parent or parents promote their student athlete and help them be successful? I'm gonna go this order: Jared, Ronnie, Rob, Alan, and Ronike.
Okay.
All right.
To answer that question, I feel the best way to help promote the student athlete, as far as promoting them to colleges and to put them in a better position to receive a scholarship, I believe it's best to just make sure that you're bringing up a child that is, you know, respective, that has their morals intact. I believe that bringing them up to basically become an upstanding young man or woman, because at the end of the day, that athlete is just going to be a walking billboard of themselves when they do get introduced to college coaches, when they do when they do go on these college campuses. And I would suggest leaving football between the child or the student athlete and the coaches, because maybe Ronike can attest to this, being a coach. I feel like when parents get too involved in the athletic program and they start stepping on the coach's toes, it can do more bad for the athlete than good. And then, in turn, you may hinder their chances of being successful and getting a college scholarship, honestly. And maybe Ronike can, you know, attest to that. I mean, I'm not a coach, though, but that's my perception of it.
I agree.
You know,
to piggyback off what Jared was saying, you know, I'm very thankful of my parents and, you know, their ability to still, you know, their morals and principles in me being a man in this world. You know, before anything, you know, before football, before all of that, you know, I was raised to be a man first, you know. And kind of like what Dr. Pitts was saying, you know, my parents, you know, I told them at a very young age, you know, I wanted to take football as far as I could take it. And, you know, they told me from jump, you know, well, this is what you got to do. And academics was a big thing. And, you know, kind of like what Dr. Pitts was saying, my parents did not play when it came to school. I mean, it was many nights I sat at that kitchen table until that project got finished. You know, I remember the first time I brought home a D, and, you know, I was mortified. I was terrified. I was in a Spanish 2 class in high school, and it was my first ever D ever. And I was just terrified, and, you know, I had to sit out a while. Yeah, I had to sit out a while until I brought that grade up. But, you know, it taught me a lesson that, you know, even if you're struggling with something, you know, you have to do what you have to do if you want to realize a dream. And I was very thankful of that, you know. And another thing that I was glad that my parents didn't do is, you know, like Jared was saying, they weren't very overbearing when it came to sports. When I started in the Little League, you know, my father was a coach on the team. But, you know, my father never played favorites. You know, he treated me like everybody else on the team. You know, if I messed up, I got chewed out just like anybody else. I didn't get any special privileges. And, you know, when I was coached by other coaches, my parents never stepped in and, you know, told the coach, you know, don't talk to my son like that. Don't raise your voice at him like that. If I messed up, I messed up. And, you know, I had to take that critique. I had to take that constructive criticism. And, you know, especially nowadays, I see a lot of parents who get upset when their son gets yelled at or their child gets yelled at by a coach. And as a parent, you have to understand you have to allow your child to be critiqued by somebody else, because these college coaches don't care about how you feel about how you talk to their son. They're there for a reason. Especially if you're a scholarship athlete, you're there to do a job, and you have expectations. And if you don't do it, there's consequences. And as a parent, you can't overstep that boundary. So I think it's very important for a parent to be supportive of their child, but also walk that fine line of not being overbearing and instilling principles and morals into your child that carry over into their adult life.
All right, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I think that for parents, one of the first things you have to realize is that you're the first coach of your kids. And if you start at an early age and make academics the priority, then everything else will take care of itself. So I think standards, if I can make it real simple, the parents are the first coaches. You have to set standards, high standards as well, because that's what's expected of you as a scholar athlete. Second, I'd like for the parents and the athletes to know that these people are out here that we call coaches in college or pro, for that matter. They send their kids to school based off of what you do. They buy their wives rings and houses. So I'm saying all that to say is their job is to find you. That's how they get paid. So if you control what you can control, starting with being a great person, starting with having great grades and good morals and character, everything else will take care of itself. If you're good, they will find you. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I would like parents to know. But you have to have standards, and you got to know that if you do the work, they will find you. It's really that simple. Just have that trust and take care of the things you can take care of. Stay in your lane, in other words. Like you guys were saying earlier, don't overbear. Don't live vicariously through your student athlete. Let them have this. This is their time. You be their best supporter, their best first coach, and their best standard maker.
That was good. I like that.
Thank you.
Alan, you want Ronike to go first so that once you respond, you can transition to the next question?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Ronike, you can go ahead and respond.
Okay. Man, that was good. I mean, I think I agree totally with these guys are saying. I think you have to create a standard. I mean, you have to create a standard. You have to set a level of expectations, and you got to let them understand and know this, that this is a privilege to play. You don't have to play. So we're going to sacrifice certain things and do certain things in order for you to play. Buying your cleats, paying a fee, things of that nature, getting you to practice. It is a privilege for you to play. And to help promote them, to promote that, like, you have to know what's going on. If you're playing high school ball, you should have a code of conduct book. The school has a code of conduct, there's a team code of conduct book, but you should also be somewhat familiar with the rules, what he can and cannot do, even when they're penalized. Because some people will get away with just certain things, So I think you should try to become familiar or find someone who you know is familiar. Like, once again, everything's on the internet, man. You can find that. And then, as a parent, you don't want to have your son manipulated. So, like I say, set a good standard, like he said, and knowing what they can and cannot do. And you got to, I'm piggybacking also again, you got to know your lane. You got to know what you're investing in. You should know what type, you might not know, you don't have to be Brian Baldinger, a football analyst, to know what type of son you got to what your son could be at, because you're going to see it. People are going to be at you. People are going to be in your ear, telling you what your son can do, and he should be with me, he should be with me. You always got to be your son's peace or your daughter's peace. They got to be able to trust you. So you have to do your due diligence of knowing what they can and cannot do, and so people won't take advantage of your child's likeness. That happens all the time. You got to. That's your investment. I think our children are our investment, so we want to put the most in our children and invest in them with the right education, the right schools, the right shoes to wear during an event, the right pants to wear. I mean, shoot, my daughter, does very well. She never was a student athlete, but I look at that. She got this job offer recently, and I talked to her, and I was very happy. I said, man, hey, that's them Parent Plus loans right there paying off, man. Like I brag about that all the time. So that's that paying off, man. That's an investment, So you don't hey, that's the reason why we pay for her to go to school. Yeah, you better know. You know what I'm saying? So, so just in regards to that, like it's an investment. Our children are our investment, and you want to get something back on that investment, helping them make the right decisions.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. As I listen to you brothers speak, I see a couple of themes emerge. So for the parents, they need to be active. They need to be actively participating in raising their child, including, like the brother said, being up to speed on the sport so you can be an effective fan, an effective advocate. Speaking of advocate, you also have to be active when it comes to recruitment. That's something that I benefited from. My dad was all over all of those letters that came in, all of those coaches. He was the one asking the questions and making sure that they had my best interest at heart all the time. Another theme, establish standards so that you're raising responsible young men and women, and hold their feet to the fire. Lauren and our son, was disciplined at one point and was held out of a season of baseball. He couldn't play, and it was because of academics. And like Rob said, if the standard has to be set high, and it was. And if you don't meet that standard, then regardless of what the school says, you have to address the deficiencies. So holding the kids to the feet to the fire. Not only being there, being active, holding their feet to the fire, and then the last theme I want to touch on is staying in your lane, knowing that established line between being a fan, an advocate, and a parent, and a coach.
Alan, you were talking, it made me think of something. You talk about how we disciplined Andre, and I really think that where his being a scholar athlete was concerned, you were a much stricter disciplinarian than I was, and I've been pretty hard on him. But I tell you guys, I'm sitting here giggling because not only did Alan say, "Oh, he's not playing baseball for the season," back then, Andre, the kids were wearing braids. He done cut the baby hair off. He was so pissed when he got that report done. He said the boy's head. I said, "Oh my God."
That's called a good daddy.
You gotta make it impactful.
Yeah.
And at least he didn't give him to George Jefferson.
He did. Yeah. He cried.
But I think it goes back to letting them know that that's important. That you care. That I will never relent on that. That standard has already been set, and it's not going to change because of you. You need to rise to that level. Okay. So moving on, we're going to keep it moving right on.
Yep.
So according to the NCAA, nearly 7 million students currently participate in high school sports, and only 480,000 of them get to compete as an NCAA athlete.
Wow.
That's a huge difference. And we're guessing that you, our listeners, have some questions for our guests. Call us now with your questions or comments at 515-605-9744. That's 515-605-9744. All right, gentlemen. So we want you to share with our listeners how you were each recruited. All right. Ronnie, can you share your recruiting experience?
Oh, yeah. Just to make a long story short, so my recruiting process was a very interesting experience for me. Like I said earlier in the show, my dream school going into high school was University of Maryland. And, being ignorant at a young age, I only cared about going to University of Maryland. I didn't want to hear about any other school. Didn't want to hear about going to a D2 school, D1 AA. Didn't care for it. So my reality call was going into my senior year. I had been invited to the junior weekend at University of Maryland my junior year. Was talking with the coaches. I'm thinking everything's going fine. Saying some promising things, and then all of a sudden don't hear from them no more. Don't call no more. Don't show up at the school. None of that. And it took me a while to recover from that. So going into my senior year, I was kind of in scramble mode. I had gotten letters from a whole bunch of D2 schools, D1 AA schools, D3 schools. Real quick, a side story. Out of the entire recruitment process, my favorite letter from a school was University of Harvard. That was by far my favorite school to be recruited by. When I seen that letter in my mailbox, you couldn't tell me nothing. And, in the letter, they were saying, hey, we saw your highlight tape. We're real interested in you. We want to, bring you up here and show you around and stuff. But before we bring you up here, we want to see a transcript. Now, when I got this letter, I had a 3.0. But it was just a 3.0, and at University of Harvard, 3.0 is like a D average there. They ain't, So I didn't send my transcript. I was like, if I send it, they're not gonna, respond. So the coach called me. He was like, hey, we were trying to figure out if you got our letter, and I was like, yeah, I got it. I'm gonna send that transcript up there soon. And I sent that transcript and never heard back from them. But I still have that letter. I still have that letter. I made my mom keep that one. That's my little bragging right there. I got a letter from Harvard. Not too many people say that. But to make a long story short, I was recruited heavily by a lot of D2 schools and D3 schools. And my biggest motivation was getting a full ride. After the whole thing when Maryland fell out, my only focus was getting a full ride. I didn't want any student loans in college. I didn't want to have to carry that burden. So when Virginia State offered me a full ride, I didn't look back. They were the only school to offer me a full ride. D3 schools, were offering financial aid packages and things like that. But, I just didn't want to do that. And, Virginia State was the only school to offer me a full ride on the entire process. And I took that, and, it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
Trojan for life.
Yes, sir. Hell State.
Hello? Okay.
Right,
hello?
Yeah, Gerald, did you want to answer? Go ahead.
Whose name did you say?
Jared.
Oh, Jared.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, my experience was kind of similar to Ronnie's as well, as he explained. First of all, I only played about 9 games in total in high school due to a transfer rule. I had to sit out a whole 365 days. And then I also had an injury my junior year. So I played one half of a game and my season was done. So I basically had my senior year to play, so I didn't have as much attention as I would want. Of course, every kid, they want to go to D1 and they have the dream school, and that's the easy path to the NFL, as you see when you look at the NFL draft. So it didn't turn out that way. I had a good amount of Division II interest as well, and very small Division I interest, D1 AA like JMU. But I ended up going to junior college and didn't even go to the Division II schools, in large part because I didn't focus as much on my academics as I should. So I believe it was my GPA wasn't at the score that I needed, but my SAT was 820. So the very minimum, I had the SAT, but my GPA was too low. So I ended up going to a junior college. I went to New Mexico Military Institute at first, and it was a full scholarship. And that was, like Ronnie said, that was the thing that, made my, lit my eyes up, was this full scholarship. And I went there. The experience there was very different. It was an experience I honestly will never forget because, first of all, it was a military institute. So, I mean, it was very strict. We were outside marching in the ACU combat uniforms at like 4 o'clock in the morning. We had the rifles, everything. But the football team was pretty good. And also, while I was at that school, just to hit on, because I know there was, we can hit on the topic of race in this conversation. At that school, I did experience some racism from the white students that were there. Some of my teammates were threatened to have our scholarships taken because, something as small as laughing at a table, and they automatically assumed we were basketball players. So I ended up leaving there, and I went to ASA. And all throughout this process, just to hit on my recruiting, I really was doing a lot of the contacting of college coaches on my own. I was literally emailing every single school in the country, and some would get back to me, some wouldn't. I was sending them my junior college film. And the way I got to Bowie State was at a junior college, to go to Division I, you have to graduate and receive your associate's degree. But I just wanted to get out of junior college and go to my university, so I decided to leave school early and go to Bowie State. And sometimes I would think maybe if I stayed, I could have gotten, a Division I AA or a small Division I offer. But, at the end of the day, you just have to, take what's given to you at a certain point. And while we're on the topic of recruitment, I want to go back and hit on the point where you guys asked, what advice can you give a high school athlete who feels under-recruited? I would say that even though you feel that you're getting under-recruited, you can't let that interfere with your academics, because at the end of the day, if you do, you may slip academically and you may not even be able to attend that Division II school that you didn't want to go to because it wasn't Division I. And at the end of the day, when you get to that Division II school, a lot of times you get the same opportunities that Division I school could have provided for you. Besides the, playing in front of thousands and thousands of fans, but all of the opportunities you get from the networking and just, beyond college, is pretty much the same. So that's my story on recruitment.
Okay. So I want to switch gears and go to Rob next, because I know he has to go soon. And Rob, I just want to talk a little bit about your experience, which was different from all of the rest of us, in that you actually went pro. So if you can just talk a little bit about your being recruited and then the process of signing your deal going pro.
Well, again, the recruitment was like a lot of the comments that already was said. I wanted to go to the University of Maryland, Penn State, Michigan. I loved all of those. Those were the teams that got all the TV time back in the day. And no one sent me a letter from not one of those colleges. I was recruited by 1AA pretty much, no HBCUs. So pretty much it came down to about 2 different schools. William & Mary actually came on late in the process, and because of their academics, the fact that they had actual natural grass, I decided to go there, and I think it was a very good decision for me, even though I was really, appreciative of the other schools that recruited me. This just was the right place. I mean, I met great people like Alan, so this was definitely the right place. So after being fortunate enough to get a tryout as a free agent, I worked really, really hard to put myself in position to make that team, and that team just won the Super Bowl the year before. So, it was, and this is my team. This is my home team. So this is like the opportunity of a lifetime. I was nervous. I knew all of the players by name before I ever met them. It was just a great opportunity, and, the difference between college and pro, you don't have to worry about the scholar part. But now you have to worry about dealing with grown men and how they pay their bills and how they put a ring on their wife's finger and put their kids in school. And so it's a totally different deal. The intensity is, you can't even fathom it. Super, super fast compared to college. And the fact that you don't have to be a scholar anymore, you would think that would make it easier. But the difference between college and pros, you might have had, even at a school like Alabama, which is the creme de la creme, and let's go Clemson, let's not be disrespectful, they may have 7, 8 professional athletes on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. Well, in the pros, every position is the best of the best of the best. So the game was so much faster. Everybody was so much better. And it was just one of the best things that ever happened to me when I actually made that squad. And I'm not going to go into the amount of money I made as a free agent, but I was a pro, so I didn't care. I didn't care. But it was a great experience, and, you know, it was something that I'll never, ever, ever forget. And if I had the chance to do it again, I do want the parents to know this. I'm a true football player. Even knowing the information that we have out here now, I would probably still do it. But I do think it's okay for parents to really scrutinize if they want their kids to play. I think it's a wonderful sport. I think that the benefits are very good for you, and it's just an individual decision that every person that wants to, and every parent with their child has to decide if they want to do. But as far as college athletics or scholar athletes, that's the way to go. And it's a medium. I want everybody to understand that the football, the basketball, the baseball, the athletics, it's a vehicle. And if it doesn't lead you to the NFL, hopefully it'll lead you to even better life. It took me a while to realize that there were people richer than football players and basketball players and baseball players. They were the people that actually wrote the checks. So, you know, use sport as a vehicle so that you can get to where you want to go. It does not have to stop at a professional team. And I thank you guys, Dr. Pitts, Dr. Lauren, all the panel. Thank you for having me, but I do have to go at this point.
Thank you, Rob. We love you.
Love you back.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it, bro.
Very good job, guys. Good job. Thank you very much.
Appreciate everything.
Yeah, have a good one. All right.
No. Alan, we have a caller.
All right.
Caller 2126, welcome to House Talk. What is your comment or question?
How are you? My question is, my son plays high school football for a prominent team in Pennsylvania, and I was told by someone that baseline concussion testing is required for every high school kid in America, and I was wondering if that's true, and if not, how does that affect, you know, the players in terms of their safety?
Anybody want to take that?
I'm not.
This is Ronnie. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. 1 second. But I'm not 100% sure because I'm not so involved with the high school level as, of course, I was in 2010. But I am involved with a local high school team out here, Garfield High School in Woodbridge, Virginia. And what I will say is what I noticed over the tour days, everyone was getting the concussion test. So I believe it definitely is still required, but as far, I'm not the coach, so I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I do believe it is still required, definitely.
Thank you. Piggybacking off of what Jared said, I'm not too familiar with how they do concussion protocol in high school now. I haven't been in high school, really involved in high school since 2011. But even I did coach briefly for 2 years at a private school in Richmond, Virginia, and we didn't necessarily require them to do concussion testing unless, you know, they exhibited signs. And at that point, we had a protocol where, you know, they had to meet a certain standard in order to be eligible to get back on the field. And that's how it was when I was in high school. I had suffered a concussion my junior year. And, you know, our protocol to get back on the field just for practice, it took me almost 2 weeks just to pass the test to get back on the field. But wow. I do think that should be incorporated for, you know, most high school programs to have, you know, some sort of baseline. But my only thing about that is We did the baseline test when I was in college, and I will say the test is very long. I think the test was like maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And so, you got to worry about some kids, where they intentionally try and score low. So if they ever do get a concussion, they can score higher on the test and, try and, beat the system to get back out there.
Wow.
Sure. Yeah, I'm in my 50s now, and when I played years ago, you can get a concussion and you just shake it off. You get some smelling salt, you right back out there. And with CTE and the things we know about the brain after our guys play, even in the collegiate level, we see how dangerous it is, with these brain injuries.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's real.
You're right.
Very real thing.
Yeah, definitely. I had
we all still love the game passionately. That's why we play it. We have our sons play it. We love the game.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, I had a concussion in college, and I ended up sitting out the following week. So they did go through the concussion protocol, and they were very detailed about it. So they do take care of you, once you are diagnosed with it. But as you said, it's a part of the game. It can happen, and you just have to.
And what year did this happen to you? Sorry.
This was 2012, I believe. It was actually the second game of the season, and it was a televised game. So second play of the game, I was out, for the rest of the week. Head on hit from the safety. It hurt. Concussions hurt to where it could bring tears to your eyes. So it's definitely nothing to play about. So I definitely, understand the question on that.
Wow. Appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Colin.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for your question.
So, in the instance of time, I'm gonna. We've got one more question, and then we'll go. Alan will go to the keys. Let's break this down for our listeners. Division II athletics has different rules and limits on practice and competition time than Division I or Division III sports. This allows for student athletes to, say, study abroad or participate in an internship over the summer. Despite the positive elements of sports and the attempt of administrators to create a less intense athletic culture, there are times when athletes choose or are forced to step down, as a couple of you have already mentioned, like you had to sit it down. There are variances in intensity for student athletes, but the commonalities among all student athletes revolve around the camaraderie and focus required to manage sports in college. It sounds like managing sports in high school and college is extremely taxing on the mind and the body. That being said, can you all each briefly give a couple of pros and cons of being a student athlete, particularly at the collegiate level, and are these pros and cons different for student athletes of color? And I'll start with, let's start with Ronnie. Do you want to go first?
No, I took first a couple other times. I'll rather play off.
You did not. Cut that out. Okay, Darren, do you want to go?
I'll take a swing at it.
Okay.
I think, my pros and cons for being a collegiate athlete is going to be a little bit different because my experience in college, it was two different settings. Between my freshman and sophomore year, and then my junior and senior year, we had a coaching change going into my junior season. So my experience, my freshman and sophomore year, it was a big shock. I would say, I love Virginia State to death, but, my freshman and sophomore year, they weren't typically as invested into, the football program as it was my junior and senior year. We had a lot of struggles, a lot of challenges and things, that made it a little bit more difficult than you would think for a college athlete. But going into my junior and senior year, a lot of things changed. We got a new coaching staff. There was a different atmosphere on campus. Football became more relevant on campus. The school really got behind us. And, you really felt, for the first time that you really felt like a true student athlete at a college school. So, that was a big difference. And, it was enjoyable, being able to represent your school as an athlete, There was a lot of the good pros was, they definitely helped you as far as, academics, making sure you were on class on time. Our coaches would check our classrooms and things like that. Some of the cons I would say about being a college athlete is, and the biggest thing for me was time management. It took me a long time to really get time management under control. My freshman year when I was in college, I was redshirted. I broke my foot. So, I had a real good chance to acclimate and be a student first. So I really got, a good stronghold on my academics. But when I finally started my sophomore year and, through the rest of my 3 years in college, it was a big struggle, with time management, making sure I got my work done. We did have study hall. So, I did take advantage of study hall and things like that. But, time management, trying to have a social life as well as, being an academic. You had to make a lot of sacrifices. You didn't get to go out every weekend and stuff like that. We always had a busy schedule. But, yeah, those are some of the challenges. And on the last question, being a student of color, I also have a unique answer to that. I'm mixed, so, I'm black and white. So I would say that, going to a HBCU, I was kind of seen as the white kid on the team. Me and my teammates, we would joke and stuff about it. And, it was always kind of being, funny to me, being the white kid to them where, I went to a predominantly white high school and I was viewed as a black kid, but I got along with everybody. So, I appreciate that experience. But, so as far as being an athlete of color, for me personally, I don't think it was really any different. But, that's just my opinion on it.
Wow. Thank you.
This is Jared. I'll take a stab at it as well. What I think the pros are for being a student athlete, of course you get to, still play the sports you love, at a high level in college. And then also you have that, you're blessed to be able to have a scholarship in most situations, to take the load off of, your family, or, in some situations you may not go to college at all if you don't have that scholarship. So I would say that's a pro. And then also just the respect that you gain automatically because you're on the football team, that you get around campus, it can make you feel good about yourself. It can build some people's confidence. And then also to have an opportunity to travel because of sports is definitely a pro. And also one thing that separates you from somebody who goes to college and they, aren't involved in the activities or sports, you have, a built-in family once you get on campus. So it can help you transition a little bit better into college because you have a better support system through your teammates and your coaches. So I think that, athletes should really take advantage of that. And for the cons, like Ronnie said, time management is big. And I feel, I went to a HBCU too, so any cons and pros for student athletes of color, I didn't experience anything at HBCU, but when I was at the junior college in New Mexico, I did experience the cons where you can kind of have a target to your back from other races where, the second you do anything that they see as wrong, I mean, you may have people try to degrade your name or, like in my situation, try to threaten to have your scholarship taken. So I think that's a con there. And just even at the bigger schools, maybe a con for them is being able to be manipulated by, the boosters and, just being taken advantage of because of the level they're on. And then once they get into the NFL, they feel you don't have the knowledge that you need because you're a student athlete and you're African American. So they can take advantage of you in some ways. That's my take on it.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is Ronike. I think the pros of being a student athlete is, having that campus celebrity, depending if you're at a team that does very well. Even if you're a team that doesn't do very well, you're still always the focal of attention on homecoming. You still get the track suits, you get the free gear, you get the butt in line, at lunch and dinner and breakfast. You get certain perks, you know what I'm saying? You get that Pell Grant money back, you know. So you're treated differently. You are treated differently. You're accepted because you're a representation of the school, and you make the school money because they come people to come watch you play, or they're going to watch you lose. The cons are also the pros. You're under a microscope. So somebody on a football team butts in line or cusses somebody out at the homecoming dance, it's going to be a real big problem. You know, if somebody from the football team takes a laptop from an area where it's not supposed to be taken from, it's going to be a big problem. You know, and I definitely agree with the other two guys said in regards to the cons being if you are someone who doesn't have a foundation and, you know, a good sense of time, and you don't master the basics, and even what you think with mastering the basics, you know, my good friend of mine, he preaches that with his kids and even on the team, you know, being prepared, being on time, all right, then communicating effectively, competing, being respectful, and being direct. You know, those are kind of the basics. So, like, I mean, if you don't have those basics in life, if you don't have a concept of time, if you don't really value education like some other people, those are going to be the cons because you're going to get your peers, especially if you're a starter and they're losing games and they're making you run extra because they're trying to find some accountability for you, you're going to pay in regards to that. You know, like you really have to learn the team aspect on and off the field when you're a collegiate athlete. As it relates to the racial thing, you know, I went to HBCU too. I went to Delaware State University where we had white players on the team. And, I mean, I think on any team that you play on, like there is no color. If you're on a team, you know, you don't really see color after a while, especially like if you have that type of good team chemistry. But there are times when we played, even as a black school, and we had to play the Hofstras. You know, you play, you know, nowadays they play University of Delaware, where there'd be white players that would say certain things. But, I mean, also I've been around teammates that were white that would say something right back to them, you know, because those racial barriers had overcame amongst yourselves. Because I don't think you see color on a team in the locker room, in the dorm, and on the field. You know, like, I mean, actually, you become, you know, you live that warrior life in a sense, you know what I'm saying? You mold together. You know, you work as a tribe. And those other people's issues become your issues. If someone gets cheap-sided in the game, we had a friend, tight end, our starting tight end was Corey Hutchinson. He was from Minnesota. And this was I went to school back in the late 90s. And by third, fourth day in camp, we changed Corey's name to C. Murder. And he had never even played with black kids before. You know what I'm saying? And Corey was a very bright kid. He was an accounting major, you know, always had the best snacks. And he would go to bat for you. You know what I'm saying? He would go to bat for you. And like we lost color. Him, Matt Nemeth, James Pop, those are all white guys at a HBCU. You know, and when we play those white teams, and if they heard a nigger, they would snap. Cold-blooded snap.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, I mean, like I say, I didn't see color, but it was black kids on their team too, though. But they know how to antagonize people. So I think regards to the racial barriers, like how we set standards, and you got to understand that, and expectations with people setting you off, knowing your triggers and stuff like that. You know, those are things you got to do. It's 2019, man. Trump's president. Hope it doesn't get us cut off the air, but Trump's president, and things are different, man. Things are different. It's weird out
here. Allie, go ahead before we transition.
Okay, so I know you guys made some excellent points. For me, the pros are that extended family. You become I gained 100 brothers by joining that team. Being a big man on campus, not only playing college, but playing at a high level and being recognized is something that I wish everybody could experience. It was a lot of fun. That was one of the pros for me, being able to travel, going to Tokyo, playing in Georgia, you know, in front of 80,000 people, playing in Navy, you know, things like that. You know, those type of experiences will stay with me forever. So those are some of the pros. Cons, it's the workload. It's the 40-hour-a-week commitment to your sport in addition to the educational stuff. So the time management, other people have mentioned it, but it's just a huge commitment, and you have to do things that other students do not, and you're never given the benefit of the doubt, or I wasn't given the benefit of the doubt. As a football player, I'm not going to treat you any differently than any other student, which by definition means I'm treating you different than every other student. So, you have to sort of deal with that stuff. The pros of being an athlete of color is, number one, just the pride in being a black man and being a college, being like college educated, being in college, and then being able to represent my family, on that level, and to hear my name over the loudspeaker, that type of stuff is like I drew an immense amount of pride out of that. You're as a student of student of color and being an athlete, you're forced to sort of join ranks, to close ranks, right? There's for me, I have a different experience because Rob and I went to a predominantly white school, so it wasn't like the white boy on the team. It was like all white boys on the team. So that part was like we were forced to close ranks a bit and even be more close-knit. It was like a team within a team, like the boys versus the girls in a family. You know what I mean? Like there was a closer bond. So that part was great. The cons was the scrutiny, the microscope. Sometimes being forced to be a spokesman for an entire race is a little bit unfair for an 18 and 22-year-old. So that, like things like that. I'm sure all of you have heard, like I did when I was a kid, that you got to be twice as good in order to be able to get the same type of opportunities, right? So you have that to live up to. And then for me, I came from an area that was depressed, is a kind way to put it. So I didn't have a lot of the advantages of some of the other, people that I played with that had a support system that extended well beyond their family and deep into their community for generations. So people who played on those type of teams had advantages that, I only dream about. So it's a little bit different coming from an area that was depressed because it was just a lot of catching up to do. There was a lot of the gap that I had to overcome, the knowledge gap, in order to get to the point where I was able to get out there and be on my own. It took a full 2.5 years. So I was well into my junior year before I actually felt comfortable until I was able to achieve a 3.0 on a college level. All of those things just, were made that much more difficult just because of the sort of the fishbowl that we were put in as not only athletes. So you're already, there's a rise and awareness of you, but then being a black athlete, you stuck out even more. So it was just, but we were already used to it. I had already been the only black kid in the class for long enough, so that that added scrutiny that you get was already built in. So it was just kind of stuff we had to deal with.
You all, before we go into the keys and wrap up, oh my God, this discussion has just been absolutely amazing tonight. And I wanted to highlight a couple of things because I think that it's really, really interesting. I love to stir the pot. I think that it's really, really interesting that I'm so blessed and fortunate to be on the airwaves with you all tonight. And not one time did any of you say anything about the relationship piece. And what that looked like. I don't know if you all had girlfriends when you graduated from high school and went to college, or if you met your girlfriends in college, or whatever the case may be. But I know firsthand, having been, Alan and us being in a relationship, and for us, it was one more step because we were teenage parents. So he not only had to balance the athletic pressure and the academic pressure, he was also a father, at the tail end of his freshman year in college. And as his significant other at the time, I remember holding my breath and thinking that he wasn't going to be home in time for our son's birth. But he was. Like, he literally got home 3 days before the baby was born. But it wore me because he wasn't able to be home for the doctor visits, and he was having to learn everything that was going on, over the phone. But the blessing in that, and as he spoke about the overall experience, I think that it proved to be a blessing for our son, right? It's like we weren't all born on third base or home plate, but from the womb, our son was blessed and fortunate enough to be exposed to this affluent institution of higher learning and this extended family that everybody had. This boy had more uncles than a little bit because everybody on the team loved Alan's son. Everybody just made a fuss over this baby. And him growing up with a father as a scholar athlete, as you all touched on earlier in the show, about setting that example. And that's what Alan always did, even with all of that added pressure. Like, I don't think that there was, I would have to ask Andre, but there's nothing that he's ever said to make me think that he ever felt like his father wasn't plugged in or engaged or actively involved in his life. And I do know firsthand that it sort of, especially when he got a little bit older, it puffed his chest out to be able to say, yeah, my dad played football for the College of William & Mary, and he's in grad school at the University of Southern California, like bragging rights, right? So you all really are, you're my heroes, and everything that you've had to endure to be these amazing scholar athletes that you are, I think just by default makes you such tremendous role models for our young men of color that unfortunately so many of them don't have the appropriate role models, that don't have those individuals that are adding value to them and letting them know that it's not about going to the pros. We're not telling you don't dream that, but as you all said in the beginning, be the best you that you can be on the field or the court, and you all embody that tonight. And I wanted to say that and just highlight that because it's humbling. It really, really is humbling for me to have heard such amazing, amazing stories. So, Alan, I'll turn it back over to you so we can bang these keys out.
All righty. So, while athletes may have to work hard to manage athletics with academics and other aspects of life, the payoff is not only playing a sport that you are passionate about, but many learn life lessons, life skills, and opportunities. If you want to play a sport in college, or if you're already playing a sport in college, consider and reconsider the views you have on balance and compare this to your coach, athletic department, and school to find your best fit, even if that means possibly transferring to another school whose views better align with your own. We share so much valuable information tonight. Only you, the scholar athlete, can answer the questions to play or not to play. So, gentlemen, Dr. Pitts, keeping in mind the cultural component for student athletes, what are the one or two key points you want our listeners to take away from tonight's discussion? Ronnie?
Set a standard, man. Find a standard, set a standard for yourself. Know what you want to be. Watch football. You know, like a lot of these kids nowadays don't even watch football. Become a student of the game. You know, working your craft on a daily basis. Bakers bake cake. A baker is always going to have the newest aprons, the newest recipes, new mixing bowls. So it's not just going to, you know, to see the foot doctor and getting a ladder and then getting a Y card. Like, learn about your sport, learn the sport you play, learn the position, find yourself, like on college teams. In regards to recruiting, can I play in college? Do you see yourself at Michigan? You know, do you see your guy? You see how the player you are at Monmouth College, like things like that, you know. And like be true to yourself. Like you should know by now, you know, where you think you can play and where you don't can play. I mean, everyone wants to be the Rudy and have that good, you know, situation, but at the end of the day, someone mentioned earlier about like, you know, the realization they're not calling, but I can go play D2 ball somewhere. I can go play D3 balls. I can go play D2 NAIA. You know, like it's so many schools out here for you to play. Do I want to be a football player, or do I just want to be at the University of Miami? You know, that may not work. You know, and you got to find out what your why is too. Really understand what your why is, because if you go to that school, you have to become a student athlete. Find out the definition. Look at other people who's in front of you, because that's the biggest problem too. Some coaches, some players don't see what they need to see in front of them. So then the coach becomes a hostage to badness, and then the players don't even know how to grow because the norm is different from where they're at and where they're playing at. And someone else just mentioned this. You may have to transfer, or you may have to go somewhere else to get that. You know, but I don't totally believe in that either. Like, we do a lot of that now. Kids transfer. There's no loyalty, and kids going everywhere, and they end up in the same spot as somebody else. You know, so know yourself. Try to be realistic. Talk to people. Communicate.
Thank you, Ronnie. All right, Ronnie, how about you? What are one of the key points that you want the listeners to take away from tonight's discussion?
Oh, yeah, definitely. My first takeaway would be, and we've kind of talked about this throughout the show, is having a realistic plan. One of the things that my parents, and my dad, he harped this on me, all through high school is, to always have a plan, have a 5-year plan, have a 1-year plan. My biggest thing for, student athletes going into college, if you're fortunate enough to have a full-ride scholarship to a college, you take advantage of it. Take advantage of that free education. Like we said earlier, there's millions of people who play high school sports, and it's only, and that number shrinks dramatically when you get to college. And, just in football, 1 out of every 250,000, college football players go to the league. So, the chances of you going to the league are not that great. So, you need to have a plan. Don't go to college and just get, some BS degree, just, wasting 4 years of your life just because you just wanted to play football. I mean, yeah, you're there to play football, but, take advantage of that opportunity you have. Football is a privilege, and, football can, really open a lot of doors for you. Football, for me, opened tremendous doors for me. It gave me a lot of opportunities. I met a lot of great people. I would like to say that I took advantage of my opportunity to be a student athlete in college. So, have a plan, even if you don't have a realistic idea of what you want to do with your life, find something, whether it's a trade. After college, do you want to go to the military? Go to the military and do, find a skill in there or do 20 years that way. But just have a plan, have a realistic plan, set goals and follow through with them. And, my second takeaway, and I think this is the most important one, is to have a support system. For me, I had a tremendous support system from my parents, my mentor, some of my friends. I had a tremendous support system that really, looked out for me, growing up and in college. So have a support system. And, like Ronike said, unfortunately, a lot of our, African-American athletes, they don't have the opportunity to have a great support system or a support system at all. And, those are the kids that, really deserve to, have a chance, realize their dreams and make something of their dreams, It kills me to see a kid who, is a tremendous athlete but might not have that support system to, make them, want to do better academically, really make them take it seriously. And that kid, they might not, be the next great athlete, but they could be the next doctor. They could be the next electrician, next plumber, next dentist, something like that. Everybody, should have a chance, make it to the next level if that's what they want to do. So those would be my 2 takeaways from tonight's discussion.
Okay. Well, thank you. All right. How about you, Jared?
We're getting to 11 minutes, gentlemen.
All right. I'll make it quick. But my takeaway is, first of all, on the athletic side, any student athlete out there that's listening with a parent of one, I would just tell them to, if you're going to decide to be dedicated to the game, then be dedicated 100% and, give as much effort as you can to the game, because if you're able to get in a position where you can, receive a scholarship, that's major because, like Ronnie said, it opens so many doors for you. So I would never tell someone to shy away from, putting their, best foot forward into getting a scholarship, whether athletically or academically. So that's first and foremost. Second, I'll take away from it, also what Ronnie had said was when you hit on the point of not wasting your years in college, I feel that, sometimes you often see that within your peers and your teammates while you're in school, and it's kind of like college is like a 4 to 5 year vacation, away from, whatever your mental or your physical environment, was when you were in high school. You get away from it and, you play football, you may win championships, you may meet friends and things like that, but when you go back home, it's the same old, same old. And I feel that while you're in college and it's such a very small window where you're relevant on campus and, use that relevancy, use that, that name that you have on campus to open those doors to leverage yourself to be able to get into internships, to be able to, get in front of the, certain careers and certain fields that you would like to get in where, when you don't have that school name and that football tag next to you, you may not be able to get into that door any other time. So I would say use your leverage as best as you can, and just get everything out of it that you can, because you go to a college, the coach is going to get what they want out of you, and the ball keeps rolling. Once they're gone, it's over. So you have to use your relevancy in that very small time frame, and be able to transition well into your next phase of life. Once you're finished.
All right, thank you, Jared.
No problem.
All right, how about you, Dr. Pitts?
I said it already. I'm gonna let you guys go ahead. I think that the biggest piece for the parents is just understanding the importance of not putting unnecessary pressure on your child. Don't live vicariously through them, like you all said. Let the kid be a kid, and if they do well, they do well. They may do well and decide that they don't want to play a sport in college. Don't pressure them to do that because you're living vicariously through them. Yeah.
Good point. All right. So for me, the couple of key points that I would like the listeners to take away is, number one, decide if this is something that you want to pursue, and once you make that decision, go at it full boat. Go at it full boat. Give it your all, not only on the field, but also being a student of the game, learning all you can, and plan and plot out your path. Know where you want to go, know what's right for you, and pursue it. The other takeaway that I would want for the student athletes is to think about what happens next. You talk about the 480,000 college athletes and how many of them go on to become pro, and you realize that you need to have another plan. Even my friend Rob, who played 6 years in the league, had to have another plan. So think about what happens next. A lot of times we put pressure on these student athletes, and they think that the only, like they said earlier, the only way to save the family is to get that pro contract. But we need to start thinking about the things that you can do beyond sports, things like STEM, things where you can make enough money to buy mama that house.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two things I would say. Go at it full bore and think it all the way through past the sport that you're participating in.
Okay. So, wow, this is so awesome. Listeners, I'm floored. I am just beyond humbled and thankful for each of you and your contribution to tonight's discussion. Just really counting it as I said earlier, a tremendous honor and blessing to have been able to share the platform with you tonight. And listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. Don't forget to order my autobiography, The Queen Within, Becoming the Woman God Intended, available now on digital distribution outlets, Amazon, Apple iTunes, Barnes & Noble, and Google Play. You can also grab your copy via my website at drlaurendpitts.com. Order your copy, and don't forget, I want you to share your comments and questions. The Queen Within truly will transform your life. It's not just for women. There are nuggets in there for everybody. Don't forget to join us next week as we conclude our summer 2019 Man-NESS series with opening Pandora's Box, BDSM, swinging, and masturbation. Yes, I said that. I did. Look, it's House Talk, baby. We have the hard conversations, and it's going to be a doozy next week. Gentlemen, it truly has been my pleasure sharing the airwaves with you tonight. Alan Russell, stop laughing at me. Thank you.
I am tuning in next week.
Look, I may need you to co-host with me next week if Dr. Maiden don't get well.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's a powerful show. Yeah, huh?
I said I'm not familiar. I'm gonna have to do some research this week.
But yeah, it is gonna be a powerful, earth-shattering show next week. Gentlemen, it's truly been my pleasure sharing the airwaves with you tonight. Again, I want to send many blessings and prayers to Dr. Maiden and his family. We love you, we miss you, and we are wishing you a speedy recovery. Thank you so much for contributing to this powerful. Yep. Thank you so much for contributing to this powerful and much-needed discussion. Have a very safe and happy Labor Day weekend. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.